Thank you, Nassim. Thank you so much for putting this together with us at COG. We're so excited to be able to get everybody together in celebration of this day. And it's so great to see so many of you here. We know that, the people who are in the room here are busy people and are people who are moving thoughtfully and trying to make our food system a better place, which is no small task. And so thank you for taking some time out to come and join us. But we hope too that it provides some opportunity to relax, sit back, hear some stories, and just reflect. And we hope that's true too for our farmers who have joined us today. So a special thanks to the three of you for taking the time from your especially busy lives to come and sit and reflect together with us. So once again, a huge welcome to everybody. So great to see over 50 people here in celebration. And it's a special day in terms of thinking how we too here in Canada and wherever you're calling in from can be in solidarity with women around the world. We saw a stat from Seed Change this morning saying nearly half of the agricultural workforce globally is female. Yet we face, unique challenges in terms of participating in that in this sector. But at the same time, women make such a huge contribution to food security, food sovereignty, seed saving, making sure that we have, an ecologically sound food system for the future. And there's a statistic from the FAO as part of that post that said closing the gender gap in farm productivity and the wage gap in the agri-food system would reduce global food insecurity by 45 million people around the world. So we really need to make sure that women are supported and are having our voices heard in the global food system and movement. So we're looking forward to the conversation today. We're looking forward to hearing a bit more about the stories of your three farms. We're really spreading across the country here, one on the east side, one in the middle, and one on the west. And so quite different landscapes and contexts and systems represented here. So that should be a really interesting discussion that makes for. So we're going to start in that order, start on the east and watch the film first of Springtide Farm, Nova Scotia, and Rebecca McInnes. That is you. Thank you so much for being here. We don't want to give too much away, so maybe you can just say hi and introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll go ahead and watch your film, and we can hear a bit of reflections after that.
Sure. Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca McInnes. I co-own Springtide Farm with my sister, Jessie. We're a small-scale certified organic market garden out here in Mi'kma'ki on the South Shore in a teeny tiny community called Lapland. This is exciting. I didn't actually know that our film was on the go, so I'm nervous and excited to share it with all of you today. So thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. And with that, Nassim, go ahead and play it.
So it is the last week of July and it is super hot. So today what we were doing is we got up a little bit early to do our CSA harvest, and that entails basically picking about 20 or so different crops, and then we'll head into our wash station to my right and we'll do our washing, our packing, and then we'll pack all of our orders.
So we harvest for a couple of different CSA options. Today we're heading to Halifax after we're done with the day, so it's about an hour and a half away from the farm. We do a delivery there once a week, every Tuesday. We have two different types of vegetable CSAs. We have a basket style CSA and a market style CSA. So we harvest for both of those.
A community-supported agriculture program means that people sign up for the program early in the winter when we're still getting our feet under us for the season, before we've made some of our major purchases, before we've bought seeds, etc. And so by having people sign up early, make a deposit, that gives us some money in the bank to start making investments into the season. And something that comes along with that, of course, is, especially given how small our farm is that you kind of ride the highs and the lows with the farm. You kind of take that risk when you sign up for a CSA that you're going to receive whatever the farmers can grow.
There's really been a lot of solidarity and support from the community that has helped us keep growing, both financially through their support in our CSA program, but also moral support when things get really tough and challenging. It's been really, really nice to have the backing of a community to help us move through these challenges.
So here on Springtide Farm, we do engage in a lot of ecological farm practices. As of this coming fall, we will be certified organic, so that's sort of one regimen that we subscribe to, and that kind of gives us a broad overview of what we can and cannot do, especially with regard to inputs.
We don't use any synthetic fertilizers to amend our beds. The amendments that we apply are organic alfalfa pellets and a little bit of potassium sulfate, because that's what's low in our soil based on our soil testing. And then another thing we do, instead of using any pesticides or sprays to get rid of said cabbage loopers, for example, we put row cover on as soon as we plant the crops, and that helps to keep the pests from entering and laying eggs on the plants.
So we're about to do probably our least favorite task on the farm, which is hauling around these giant silage tarps. But we do that because it's kind of a passive way to kill back whatever crop we're trying to kill and prepare the section for new crops. 1, 2, 3. We do this instead of tilling or other methods that would maybe, churn up the soil quite a bit, and this way we're actually just letting it be. Just this last weekend, we had a massive rain event here in Nova Scotia. Thunderstorms that lasted about 12 hours. We got upwards of 8 inches of rain, and frankly, I was just up all night that night, thinking not only about how the crops were faring, but also, oh, okay, well, what's going to happen in September when hurricane season rolls around? Are they going to be way worse this year? Things are only going to get more stressful on the farm because we're so connected with the earth and with the natural systems that anytime there's an extreme weather event, it's so noticeable. Here, you really notice the changes in the trees, in the endemic species that are here, in the time of year that things bloom, in the frost cycles. There's just so many indicators that things are changing quickly that it's hard not to be anxious about it. I think a lot of farmers are already trying to adapt and even mitigate to the crisis. How to manage your mind spinning about it is a whole other matter.
So this is our 6th season working together and our 4th season kind of running a business together. It's been fun, it's been challenging. Yeah, I think we're making it work, and I think it's going pretty well.
I think what helps is that we both have a shared vision of what we want to see here on the farm, which is not just the two of us like breaking our backs and kind of hidden behind this fence line of our farm, but we want to make it more of a community operation. So I'm feeling that as we expand the farm and bring more people on board in any capacity, then that'll help our relationship too, because it means we won't be in each other's hair as much. But we have fun, we still laugh.
We're laughing right now.
I don't see the future of agriculture as being sustainable if it maintains this steady road down the industrial model. But I do see hope in other small farms and communities that are really engaging with this agroecological model that is all about good ecological practices and also good, healthy relationships.
We're in this together. We're not just growing food for ourselves and for the purpose of moving it from A to B. We're actually trying to feed these people that we're building relationships with. I think that there's so much potential here, and we're in our earliest days, but yeah, I don't really know how to put it, but it feels exciting, and it feels like we're on the brim of something really good.
Rebecca, congratulations. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I hope that was a fun experience for you to watch that along with all of us. Let's hear some reflections from you. Why, this campaign is all about connecting growers and eaters, right? And getting our message out to the public. So why was it important for you to participate in the campaign? Why do you think it's important for all the rest of us to know more about how you farm and the ecological practices? And really what you guys were saying is we can't sustain, right? We have to regenerate first, and then we'll sustain that. So yes, share your reflections. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you so much. That's a really great question. And I'm so grateful to the National Farmers Union, to the March 4th creative group, to allow us to really tell these stories and connect with the consumers, and also, the whole world. Everyone is eating and everyone is a part of the food system. And I think it's really key to be changing that narrative and, putting the onus of the food system and the direction it takes on the broader population. So moving it away just from the land stewards and the farmers and the producers and all of these folks, and really sharing it across the wider community. And I think in thinking about food sovereignty as a goal to work towards, that's really the piece. It's taking the power of the food system, putting it into the hands of the producers, putting it into the hands of the people eating the food, and making sure that, we have that reminder that food is sacred and that food is something to, be appreciated and to be, cared for and loved and shared. And I think that's a really nice thing to be able to put out into the world, that farming is definitely something, everyone always calls it a labor of love, and that's definitely true. But I do think that every day we can wake up and go into the fields and do this work. It truly feels like a radical thing to be doing every single day, because it's like, this is a tangible thing that we're able to do. It's an alternative to the industrial food system. It's something that we're actually doing. We're growing food, we're giving it to people. And I think that getting everyone on board with that, and even just sharing these stories, is so, so powerful. We really touch on community a lot through our little film there, because it has been so important to us. We're a teeny tiny little operation, and we have so many people backing us, and that support has truly meant so much. And it's meant that we're able to do what we want to do. And, it's that transparency and us being able to, show off our waist-high weeds that you can see in that video, because nobody's perfect. And when it rains 8 inches every week all summer, you just can't get that stuff under control. But it's having that transparency. And we were, filling in our CSA members all along throughout the season, being like, look, here's the situation. Pepper's not looking so hot, but we've got lots of tomatoes. So that's great. So I think just having that transparency and really getting everyone on the same page and rolling through the highs and lows together has been so important for us. So I think that these films do a fantastic job of sharing that story. And yeah, I'm just glad that, as much as I'm like, oh God, I don't want to see how sad those beet transplants look that we're like transplanting into soggy ground and those super tall weeds and all these things. But it's like, that's the reality. And it's not always just like the romantic, dreamy farmscape. It's like, this is incredibly hard work. So yeah, happy to be sharing the ups and downs.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, sharing the whole process, the successes, the challenges, and that's where the importance of community comes in. Absolutely. And I love the way that you guys said, we're feeding the people who work with us, we're feeding ourselves, we're feeding our, and it goes out from there. So you have to be doing it in the right way from the ground up. And I have a feeling it's going to be some common threads with the next two films we'll watch too, for sure. So thank you again. You've got a tip there on folding tarps. Thank you, RC. This is why we're all here together. This is about crowdsourcing solutions, right? Sharing tips, successes, and challenges too. So yeah, thank you so much. Everyone, I hope you're tracking down your reactions, comments, questions. We're going to definitely have more time after we watch the next two films to come back and have some conversation. So with that, let's move into now coming over to the prairies. So and now we're coming to Prairie Garden Seeds. Rachel Trenier, welcome. Thank you again for being with us too. We're going to watch your film, but first we'll love to hear from you and just have you introduce yourself to the group. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rachel Trenier from farm located near North Battleford in Saskatchewan in Treaty 6 territory. And I operate Prairie Garden Seeds with my dad, who's also here with me today. And we have been running a small scale seed operation for about 40 years. And we emphasize biodiversity, regional seeds, open pollinated public domain, and yeah, just getting people excited about seeds and growing food. I love growing food for my friends and family and self, and I like encouraging other people to put the effort and work in to value growing that food. So getting seeds from us that are varieties that you can't necessarily find in the store for your food. So yeah, it's really exciting work. It's a lot of work, and we're happy to be a part of this film series and excited to watch again with you guys.
Thank you, Rochelle, and hello, Jim. You're off to the side there. Hi. Welcome. Happy Women's Day. Thank you for being with us. And yes, seed sovereignty and the whole issue of seeds is such an important thing that the NFU has really been leading on too. So we all thank you for taking up that issue, both you guys directly and the bigger NFU too. So
Thanks.
congratulations.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Nassim, take it away. Enjoy, everybody.
Should have mentioned too, it was fall when we were visited, so it's there's not much left to harvest in the garden.
Noted. Thank you.
And you've pulled the husks back on all the ones that I picked?
Yeah, but we haven't finished picking the other stuff because it's too wet. Too wet. We got 3/4 of an inch of rain in that rain gauge over there.
Well, they say there's at least 8 days, between 8 and 9 tenths in North Battleford.
I need to cultivate my garden, but it's too wet now.
Sure is. And it'll probably dry off, but it might not.
I hope it does.
The lowest bunches are always the first ones that
There.
ripen.
And these guys are, yeah, I'll just keep.
This is a tomato called Midnight Snack, if I remember
You
correctly.
do remember correctly. I'm impressed.
Mmm.
And it's purple in color on the outside only. I rarely take bites of cherry tomatoes because it usually makes a mess, but this one doesn't. So
Mine did.
I am Rochelle Tournier.
I am Jim Tournier, and I'm your father.
Yeah, and we run Prairie Garden Seeds, and we're here on our farm in Treaty 6 territory in Saskatchewan, just on the edge of Murray Lake. And this is a farm that I grew up on. My dad's parents came here in the 30s, and they left southern Saskatchewan during the drought, the dirty 30s, and looked for a location with water so that they could irrigate vegetables. And so that's how we ended up in this gorgeous location. Yeah, I don't know.
Yes, there is seed.
There's a couple of seeds in it. Prairie Garden Seeds has been operating since about 1986. My dad started gathering seeds and offering them for sale. We aren't certified organic, but we don't use any agricultural chemicals. The land that we're on is about 80 acres. Our gardens are anywhere from 3 to 5, depending on how ambitious we're feeling in the spring.
We also have a wonderful garden location. It's a warm and sheltered microclimate. It has very good soil, a little short on rainfall, but we manage with that. And because of our wonderful soil and climate, there are all kinds of things that every year will seed themselves. So as you walk through the garden, you'll see quite a few flowers. We didn't put them there, they put themselves there. There's a ground cherry here that has produced all kinds of good fruits that seeds itself. We'll notice these things and try to leave some of them there.
There's the biodiversity that exists in our collection, and then there's the biodiversity that we have in our garden each season, which is not the same, because in our garden each season we're growing a fraction of what our collection actually holds, because we can't grow everything every year. We're in the Prairie Garden Seed seed storage room. So we grow about 95% of the seeds in our collection. And here we store all of our seeds dry, cool, in the dark. Well, a seed contains a living, breathing embryo, and that little plant is living and breathing the whole time in storage, and it's slowly using up the energy it has saved up in that seed to wait until the right conditions are around so that that embryo can grow and pop out of the seed coat. So moisture, light, and heat. So you want the exact opposite for seed storage, because the slower that embryo is using up the energy, the longer that life of the seed will be in storage. Once they're processed and cleaned, they come and live here until they get packaged to be sent out to customers. So the process of getting seeds from growing them, producing them, and getting them into packages is very intricate and complicated because we have so many different crops. Seeds are produced in dry capsules, pods. Some things are in wet fruits. There's a lot of fiddly work.
Well, this is one of these beans, and I'm going to just get in this tub and tramp on it, which is probably a pretty traditional way of turning your plants into seed. These pods are lovely and dry. We harvested them probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. They've been sitting indoors all that time. So all you do is step on a bean pod and it pops open. This is called winnowing. And if you had a combine, you would have a machine turning a fan doing the same thing. But this is a pretty traditional way that farmers used to do it before we had all the fossil fuels.
I am processing tomatoes for seed. I take the tomatoes, I wash them all, I cut out all the bad spots on them and the stem area, cut that tomato in half and just squeeze out the middle. And then this beautiful juicy mixture here, I will let it sit to ferment for 3 days. And after the third day, I will wash those seeds. They will have shed their little jelly sac because this mixture is of course a little bit goopy. And then I let it sit for a couple weeks to dry out of direct sunlight. And then we rub it and screen it and put it in an envelope in our seed storage, ready to package and go out to customers. Pellissier Durham, where's that one?
Oh boy, maybe this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lovely wheat.
Yeah, and this one's the Jason Einkorn.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's the
Egyptian, I guess
yes.
you called it, yeah.
Well, some of the people who buy wheats from us are simply collectors, and they're, I guess, an international group, and they buy and they swap and they share, and so wheats have come from all over, and it's wonderful to do so because all these old wheats are still available somewhere. Presently, there's a huge push by multinational corporations to control all the seeds that are produced in the world. It obviously could be very profitable to them. They would control the food supply. Luckily, the National Farmers Union has been the strongest voice in Canada for farmers being able to save their own seed. And I think we have been successful in the past in preventing a greater takeover of seeds by corporations, but they don't stop trying, so we have to keep being that voice here in Canada.
There's something called the Open Source Seed Initiative, which is a movement that is emphasizing the importance of leaving seeds in the public domain. And there's a pledge that goes with those seeds saying you will not restrict other people's access to them or their derivatives. Plants have been bred over 10,000 years of history of agriculture, and no one owns them and no one should be able to own them. So we've got one of the most diverse fava bean collections, publicly accessible fava bean collections, probably in the world. We have about 30 different varieties of broad beans. So this is one of the largest seeded ones, Aprovecchio Select. And so it's got very, very big seeds that are blonde mostly. Black Russian fava. There's another really fun fava here because it's a mixture of colors. It's called Ianto's Return, and so there's some purples in there, some tan.
I built up a reasonably good collection of seeds before Rochelle started working with me, and now it's pretty important that someone carry on growing and sharing these seeds so they keep actively playing a role in feeding the world.
I think that there are many reasons why it's important for us to stay around, and I have a gift with being so blessed to be on the land that I'm on and be in the family that I'm in that's done such great, radical, important work.
It's now Rochelle's baby, and I work with her, for her, and so we see what we can get done together.
Would you like to know how?
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks, Rochelle. Thank you, Jim. Wherever you guys are, come on back on the screen. Congratulations. What a beautiful family legacy and business, and so much work. My goodness, but important work. So same question for you guys. How has your experience been being part of this campaign, and why did you feel it was important to get the message out about what you're doing on your farm and in your business, out to the public and out to eaters and the broader audience?
Yeah, I definitely echo a lot of what Rebecca also said in that, just showing the ups and downs, I mean, when we see our own films, Rebecca, when I saw yours, I saw no imperfections. When I see mine, I see lots. But yeah, just showing people the reality behind these small scale farming operations. And even, you know, whatever size that farm is, showing the humans behind the operation in the world of, like, you know, increasingly powerful capitalism and e-commerce and Amazon ordering. I mean, people forget that there are humans behind what you're getting. And I think in our situation, like being a small seed company and doing mail order, and, you know, just up against the whole mail order, like I say, Amazon, where it's like, if there's any tiny little flaw that you want to, you know, yeah, register with Amazon. Yeah, no problem. Your money back, whatever. They'll send you more stuff. And like, we are a human operation. We do a ton of hand labor. We can't afford to do that kind of thing. And we hope that people who get from us care about the fact that we're a human operation. And so being a part of this film series, as much as it was very anxiety inducing and intimidating, because I am super relational and interpersonal on like a one-on-one level. I love storytelling. I really value the importance of storytelling, but it really changes it when you put it on more of like a public scale and a YouTube scale. And now you're not actually there to explain what those tall weeds are doing there, or, you know, why you feel like you have a mess around the farm, and in the midst of it, you're just trying to keep a whole bunch of other balls in the air. And so, yeah, it's been a practice and an exercise in just accepting and being willing to let your story go out there like that, with all its imperfections in some ways. Obviously, we didn't show all of them. But yeah, it's I think also, in order to reach more people, you can't do all of your storytelling on an interpersonal level. We want more people to know about what we do, to value what we do. We really love the aspect of education, educating the public. There's so much misinformation out there. There's so many yeah, useless things vying for people's attention. And meanwhile, I'm like, people don't know about seeds and the importance of seeds. And then you can also tell somebody about what you do, but it's a different thing for them to actually see a film of what you're doing. Even showing this to family. My mom's from the Netherlands, sending it to our family abroad who's never been here. They're like, oh, they have a bit more of an understanding of what it is you do. And then, of course, the next level would be visiting and coming to the farm and participating. And yeah, but they're all different levels of learning about what it is we do and the value of it. So really honored to be a part of this series and to be alongside all of the other farms that are featured. You guys are all amazing. Yeah. And my dad can speak another time. Or do you want to say anything? No.
Oh, I'm the older generation. It's good to be passed on to the next.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think you were saying, you know, we can't afford to do some of these things as a small operation, but I think it's really a mindset shift we have to have in the bigger sense, where we all can't afford to not be doing things the way that you're doing, right? So you guys are just leading the way, and the rest of us have catching up to do. You're having a big up there in the chat from Crystal. Very high quality. Been using Prairie Garden Seeds for years. Thank you so much, Crystal, for sharing. It's a beautiful testimony. We had some questions in there. Thanks, everybody. Keep tracking your questions down. We will come to them after we come to our third film. But there was one question about what's your website. So to Rebecca and Rochelle, you can list your websites down there. And I think you had mentioned the Open Source Seed Initiative as well in your film and a pledge. So if that's something that you wanted to share, people can take a look at that. Please go ahead and do so. So everybody, just a note on the way that these films are playing. When they're shared through the screen, there is a bit of a lag sometimes on some of your screens, but you can also find these films on YouTube and watch them for free on the NFU's YouTube channel, so as well as on the website. So please do take a look at that after this and share them with your families, friends, and then one day everybody will be coming to visit your farms. So thank you so much. Very inspiring. So we'll move now to the West Coast. take a little trip over to BC and hear from our third farmer from Grounded Acres. Welcome, Mel. Thank you so much for being with us. Please go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll watch your film.
Yeah, so hi everyone. It's so lovely to see so many people join today, and kudos to pick also. Well, then March 8th also almost been March 8th, but it's a great time of the year to do this because then you have been able to fill up our field. So it's yeah, lovely to gather on this day. So I am Mel Sylvestre in Gibsons, BC, in the Squamish territories. And my partner from the list, still organic farm called Grounded Acres Organic Farm. Vegetables, we have some great ants too. We are cultivating about 3 acres right now with the staff helping us out. Yeah, and we mainly do some fast market that we go to farmers market. We have participated in the Bucks program. We oh, apparently I don't sound that loud. Is that better if I may be inconsistent? That sound. You know what? I can switch to the other account. It's on the Grounded Acre because my phone is not great. Let me switch over right now. See if that will work.
Yeah, it just cuts in and out a little bit.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Better.
Way better.
Okay. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm getting a weird echo on my end, but I think I just need to figure out a few things here. Apologies, technology. It's always a fun one. So yeah, I don't know where I was at with all of this, but this is kind of the big picture of what we do here. I think I'll leave it there. All of this for just a few more words.
Awesome. It's nice to meet you from all of us. So, Nassim, back to you. Grounded Acres Organic Farm. Enjoy, everybody.
We have a lot this week if you want to catch up.
Persephone just upped their weekly order to 22 pounds.
Well, we're gonna need it then.
The start of every week we do a field walk, just the 2 of us, the day before our staff start, where we're just assessing priorities for work for the week. But our biggest thing right now that harvest season started, is figuring out where everything's going. We're farming on unceded and ancestral Squamish territory, just a little bit up the mountain from the traditional village site of Chiquelp, what is currently known as Gibsons, on the Sunshine Coast in the southwest of British Columbia.
We moved here 3 years ago, so this is our 3rd season. We are a mixed vegetable farm. So we're give or take 2 acre to acre and a half. We are also certified organic, so we do practice in line with the organic standards. And each bed is pretty much all season long in production or in succession in some form.
Well, one of the interesting things about this region is that it's a whole bunch of mountains dropping into the ocean. So there's not a lot of flat land. There's only a few areas that have some good soil or a little just topographically well suited for farming. So there's a lot more demand for local food than is being produced here. have a farm stand that's open 4 days a week. This is the first week that we've got new Warba potatoes. By late June now, we've also got some really nice roots coming in. We've got our kohlrabi, sweet spring carrots, beets are happening. People are really excited about the fennel bulb. We do a lot of herbs, which if we were only a farm stand farm, I don't think we do, but because we do farmers markets and chefs, it makes sense to grow a lot of herbs, and so we're one of the only farm stands in town that has herbs on it. So I like that we have kind of a complimentary grocery shop on our stands.
So this is our main irrigation system. Wasn't originally set up for it. When we moved to this property, we knew in this region there was a lot of water issues, drought and water restrictions. So we set this up. It's 6 of those big thing that we have. They're 1,500 gallon each. And we set this up for in case of emergency. Historically in this region, when water restriction kicked in stage 4, which is one of the highest stage before the stage of emergency, they have lasts a week to 3 weeks max. So when we moved here and we've seen that, we're like, we should make it through. Last year, the state of emergency was on, if I remember well, it was 3 or 4 months. So this is definitely not enough. And we had them refilled last year 3 times with a water truck coming through, and that was a community donation, literally coming in with water truck. There was a forestry company that donated a truck for us.
You know, the wild thing about climate change is our droughts are now more dry, and also the wet season is more wet. So at the same time, we're dealing with atmospheric river events now, and a lot of logging uphill from us on Mount Elphinstone, and it's very clear, all the studies show that when areas are logged, especially clear-cut style, you lose all of the water retention that forest had the ability to do. There's a forest above our farm that's literally called the forest that holds water, and that forest is like an assurance in our topsoil not running away. But if it gets logged, it means that when there's these big rain events, way more water comes rushing down the mountain and across our farm, and we get seeds washed away, we get crops damaged, but worse than all of that is our topsoil. The first couple of inches is where all the life in the soil is. It's what we invest all the cover cropping and the compost in building up the fertility for. All of it just washes out into the Strait of Georgia, and so you know, that's also a big concern for us is protecting our water resources for the drought season, but also finding ways to keep the water in place.
Tamara's got his camera. You can show him what you picked, River.
Show me again.
You show him again?
What's it like raising your kids on the farm?
It's pretty incredible. They know more about plants and insects and bugs and birds than a lot of grown-ups we know. It's pretty natural for kids, and it's a funny thing about having a toddler is if you cook a vegetable and put it on their dinner plate, they may not eat it, but if they pick it off the plant, they will eat every single thing. Raw zucchini, broccoli, anything. That's a farmer's shame.
Yeah.
Something bad about it? It's still not...
Oh no, it's just the sizing. It's not like most people look for this kind of shape and size. This is great for baking. You can just like gut it a little bit, stuff it. But most people get a bit intimidated by this size. But we'll eat it.
So, I mean, an interesting thing for us is we found we were farming in an urban farm previously, and it was pretty common, and it didn't feel like it was a big deal that we were out and queer on that farm, and some other people were as well. But when we left and we moved to a rural area, we felt like we wanted it to be something people knew about us right from the start.
In our region, we're very lucky. It is a pretty good region to be out in queers and trans and like whatever you want to be, non-binary. There's still a lot of issue. I'm not saying it's perfect, but this land, I think we've managed to create a space which will attract people.
some queer folks, especially youth, who may not even think farming is an option for them until they see a farmer who is queer. We've had actually parents of queer teenagers on the Sunshine Coast here tell us that their teen never thought about farming as something they might be into until they saw us and started to get excited about it, which is so nice to hear.
Yeah, and for us, the other twist to it is that every year we employ a few folks. And from year one, I would say more than 50% of the applicants we get are self-identified queer folks that want to work here. So that for me means a lot. Like, I wish there was that when I was growing up, when I started farming. But yeah, I'm glad to be able to offer it now. Hannah is known as the lettuce queen at the market. It's all our babies. I don't even know the name of the variety at this point. She's full on control on lettuce. We step down.
It can feel really intimidating when you learn about the bigness of the problems with our food system, and you're just one person and you're eating on your own budget and you've got limited time in your day. You know, find out where are the markets that are close to me? What are the months of the year that they're running? And when are the times, maybe in the month or in the week, where I could carve out the time to stop by? And if there's a lot of vegetables and fruit that aren't familiar to you, to chat to those farmers. Chances are they know 10 different ways to cook them. And I know when I was starting to learn about food systems and I was in the city, that's exactly what I did, is I got to talk to them, and it inspired my whole menu plan for the week. And it left me with a feeling of knowing who grew my food and trusting them, and it felt so good.
Oh, you guys, the NFU did such a beautiful job with this campaign, and all of you did such a great job being part of it too. So Mel, I see Hannah's here too. Hannah, feel free to chime in here. But people want to know where they can get your shirts, and and we want to know, a bit more about your experience being part of this film. What a beautiful story.
Yeah, Hannah, feel free to jump in. It's interesting actually, because even you can tell in the film, like, Hannah usually is more of the spokesperson for the farm, and she kind of threw me in front of the camera here as like balancing the it's always there. She's also the farmers market person. So and it's a bit of part of it, like, for us participating in such thing and being visible and being out there, and the film and all, is that, like, naturally, and I'm kind of maybe one of more classic farmers, like, there's a reason I love farming, and there's many reasons why I love farming, but one of the many reasons is that, like, I love to be alone and I love to hide in my corner, and I am not I'm not out there so much. It's something that suits me very well in farming, and each their own. I think there's a lot of farmer out there that love being out there, and then Hannah's one of those that she tries at the farmers market, and I'm so thankful that I'm with her. We don't have to, like, draw the short straw who's going to go. And that's a big part of telling a story, though, is to be out there, and being at the farmers market is one way to do it, the one-on-one connection. But even the folks that sometimes shop at the farmers market, everybody has this kind of either a romanticization of farming, of what it would be like. They don't really see it, or they just pass by or come at a farm stand and, like, oh, look at this, so beautiful. Like, they don't see the work behind it. They don't see all the weeds that we saw on camera, which, by the way, that was probably the worst of the weedy time of the year that the crew came on site. It's not always that weedy, but we do have parsley, so it's mostly always that weedy. So yeah, it's kind of that the part of telling the stories, being present in those swim like the one that NFU have done, and it's a wonderful opportunity to show on site, because although we do love people, I'm not hiding because I don't love people, I do love people, but we're so busy in the summer and the time of the year that it would benefit for people to see a farm. We do not have time. We're not a public or educational farm, that the one we were on before at ABC Farm, you could walk on and bug us whenever you want, and most of the time I would try to hide still over there, or you would see someone coming towards you and know they have a question. I was like, look busy. You have to look busy. Like, so, but, and it's not that we don't love people. It's just like, it's the rhythm of the season that does that. So yeah, it's incredible to be able to set some time aside to have those little film and show. And I think people get a lot out of watching those, and feel that connection, like a deeper connection than just eating your food, but very seeing where it's from and who are involved.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. Well, then, thank you for stepping outside your comfort zone and putting it way out there. We all appreciate it. And yeah, as we thought, lots of common threads between the three of you, right? It's about being supported by the community, in turn supporting your community and beyond. There were some common threads too in the three films around climate change, the impacts of climate and water, too much water or not enough water, and how you're all trying to deal with that. And so I think there's a lot for us to discuss and pick up about. But Nassim, I think we're planning to take a quick break, let people stretch and get up and come back in a couple minutes. Thank you.
That's right. See you all in 5 minutes.
Take 5 minutes, go drink some water. We'll come back very soon. Hello, everyone. Good to see everyone's still here. I know you're all eager to participate in the conversation, but welcome back. I hope you had a good break. Come on back in to our virtual room. Beautiful. We're inviting Mel, Rachel, and Rebecca up to the virtual stage. Welcome back, everybody. And yes, once again, thank you so much for being willing to share your films in general and with us here today. Let's get into some conversation. So everyone, if you want to ask a question, we're happy for you to write it down and I'll speak it out. And if you also want to raise your hand and say it yourself, that's fine too. So just to start off, we're here for International Women's Day. One of the common threads, I think, between your films and your stories is really how you're bringing yourself into your farm and yourself into your business and what you do. So could the three of you comment on that a bit more? You know, what does it mean? What does this day mean to you, International Women's Day? And how does who you are as a person, as a human, come into what you do on your farm and in your operation? And why do you think it's important for those things to be working together? So whoever wants to, we can popcorn style it. Whoever wants to start, I'm opening it up.
Bill's fine.
We're all so polite. Okay, I'll take it. I think for me, like International Women's Day for me, in a way, as I was growing, was a big part of my activism, like learning about the struggle of the past and learning about what left to be done. I mean, I became kind of like a young adult, like teenager into young adult, probably during like the third waves feminism. There was still a lot of struggle, like around, like even I remember some of the first, like, and in the queer community specifically, but some of the first people that, like, as I was coming out, that I identified with, just kind of still
grasping the whole trans world and like non-binary and all that. And so I think those spaces are created by either the International Women's Day and group working around that are very important space to kind of keep deconstructing some of the old construct that we've been sitting on and advancing a little bit more in terms of women's rights and what's left to be done, and gathering together once in, like, you know, that time and space that you were just like reflecting back of what has happened and what needs to happen in the future. And I mean, as a farmer, it's spring, so what it means in the context. Obviously, there's still lots and lots to be done in the agricultural world. It was very interesting actually hearing the stats about that 50% of the agricultural labor in the world is mainly by women right now, because still in the representation out there, and you get Farming Magazine, what do you see on the cover is like the all white men in overall. So we still have a lot of work to do. But at the same time, and I think at the other side of this is in the small scale, like ecological and organic world, I know personally, I have been surrounded so much more by women than by the older generation of farmers. So they really depend what pool you fell into. And I found myself lucky, but I also know it's a different story. If you're probably in the middle of the prairie, like Rachel, or somewhere else, it's probably quite a different story.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Is it true, Rochelle?
Yeah, I guess that segues into me. For sure, it would be a different story here in some ways. And I guess I appreciate your sort of highlighting how the personal is really so much a part of this, because while that's a blessing, it's also a challenge that our work is so personal. My work, I feel, is so personal. And so you feel a little bit more vulnerable and exposed, and hence why putting a film out there like this is a little bit more scary. And just that, yeah, worry and hesitation of judgment of imperfections that, yeah, go along with. And I mean, we all have those voices in our head, but I think in a patriarchal world, there's a lot, maybe I find in my head, there's a lot of critical voices telling me I'm not enough and I'm not doing good enough. So yeah, International Women's Day, a day to be able to celebrate how far we've come, is pretty great. And I'm really grateful for thinking back to, you know, the time when my grandma and even my aunties wouldn't have had as much social freedom and liberty to engage in the world the way I am able to. And I'm really grateful for that. And, you know, being in a family, being the youngest and only girl, I have two lovely, wonderful brothers who have no interest in the farm. One of my brothers who is on this call today, and just feeling blessed and honored that, like, in a family farm situation, that as a woman, I can take over the farm, and it is not an issue and a struggle just because of my gender, which would not have been the case, you know, not that long ago. So yeah, feeling pretty grateful for that, being raised in a family where I've been, yeah, my brother made a comment there. Of course, I referenced you, bro. My family's very supportive, and that's, yeah, pretty amazing. But there's still like intimidating parts of being in the farming world in the prairies, of when I've got to order a part for my tractor, or I'm learning about a piece of machinery that I might want to buy, and trying to like navigate that area that still is pretty much a man's world, can feel really intimidating going into those dealerships. My brother helped me set up some irrigation this fall that I've been like late summer meaning to get set up because of all the drought situation. And I just sometimes feel so intimidated by these projects that I've got to, you know, I don't have any pre-existing knowledge of. And then I've got to go into stores and ask questions and look for supplies, usually talking with men that sometimes are great and respectful, but I'm always hesitant about the judgments that might be in their mind based on just my gender. And so my brother actually went for me and got a whole bunch of the irrigation stuff and made a good connection. And then that guy actually told him, you tell your sister, here's my card, that sometimes this can be an intimidating man's world. You get her to call me whenever she needs anything, explain the situation. And yeah, so stuff like that is really encouraging, you know, when men are willing to recognize that and say, hey, you can come talk to me and I'm going to find whatever you need, right? So there's the little like moments of, hey, we're going in good directions. And then there's other things where it's like, oh, that's still, you know, I'm frequently asked about being married, having a partner on the farm, having children, and why I don't. And I'm just like, because I have a farm to take care of that takes like a lot of work and attention and priority. And I've got about 800 different varieties of seeds, and that's like millions of children. So yeah, well, I love kids. I mean, this is my, yeah. So it's just interesting.
Your seeds are your babies.
Yes. And my dog.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you, brother, for the support. Girl power. I love it.
And this guy's a good support too.
Of course,
for women.
we have a feminist.
Thanks.
Thank you. How about you, Rebecca?
Yeah, I can add a little bit more. I definitely resonate with what both of you have already said. Rochelle, definitely there's still moments where I'm like, do I actually know? Yeah, with trying to fix the tractor, these things, it's like those are just not skills that I have. And it's like not because I'm a woman, it's because I'm, you know, a first generation farmer and I just never learned these things. So I feel like it's a lot of kind of grappling with that reality also. The first time when we just bought this farm, I was going to the quarry to inquire about, you know, certain type grade of gravel. And I was so intimidated to stop. I drove past the entrance like 4 times where I was like, okay, I can drive in. And it was like a totally fine experience. And I'm so lucky. Like I have been incredibly privileged in my farming, in my time farming, that I have learned from lots of incredible women and primarily have farmed with women. So I feel like my world of farming is maybe quite small, but I'm like, oh, of course women are growing food. And of course, like that is normal. And I like realize how lucky I am to be able to say that just feels so normal to me, and that it has been such a beautiful experience. And yeah, I think just resonating also with thinking about, I love farming because I get to be alone in the field sometimes, and you know, it can feel isolating, but I think remembering also that I'm not here trying to reinvent the wheel. There's been so many like amazing growers and amazing women ahead of me that have like forged this path, and always remembering that, you know, the majority of food is still grown by women, and that, you know, Black and Indigenous land stewards and growers and producers have really like laid out a path for what is currently the kind of small scale farming movement. So I think that women have been present, and I'm really appreciative that, you know, it's in the you know, broader view now that this is the reality and that we're here and we're growing.
Thank you so much. Beautiful. It partly segues into a question we have from RC here, which was for Rochelle, but I think that this question can be asked to each of you. It's a set of questions, really. I'm just picking up on what you said. Have you had any interaction with Indigenous seed savers? That's for you, Rochelle. And then I think the next part of this question, it touches on the whole climate change and climate resilience piece. Each of you are ecologically minded farmers, you know, but you're also dealing with now these climate impacts and climate events. And that was, you know, that came up in most of your films. Rochelle, I think that, you know, you are where you are because of a drought that happened almost 100 years ago now. But, you know, so it's, the climate is always something that farmers are dealing with every day. But, you know, how is it, like, what are you guys dealing with now, and why do you farm the way you do? And, you know, what do we need to be thinking about with, you know, how things are today in terms of climate change and climate resilience? And so the particular question for you, Rochelle, was, are you working for climate resilience, for example, with landrace breeding? But it's a question for all of you in terms of how that comes into how you're thinking about what you're doing and some of the specific actions you take. So maybe we can start with you, Rochelle, and then.
Sure. Yeah, and I know that the first question on that was from RC, was also, what temperature zone are you in example 4A? So we're in like 2A here. So we have a very different growing season climate than than many others on the call. It's pretty cold, well, very cold winters, short season, and then quite hot summers. And yeah, the climate resilience question and landrace breeding, I mean, we don't do a lot of really specific intentional breeding, but a lot of people will say if you are a seed saver, you are breeding and selecting in some ways, right? In a minimal way. A good friend of ours runs the Gene Bank in Saskatoon, Canada's national seed collection, Plant Gene Resources Canada. And he has said to me and emphasized to me so much, the work that you guys are doing is so incredibly important in terms of climate resiliency because your collection is being grown much more frequently than a backup collection that's kept in storage, in freezers. The Svalbard Doomsday Seed Vault is wonderful, but those seeds aren't interacting with the changing conditions every year. So in that sense, we do emphasize like locally adapted, resilient seeds that will make it in the conditions that exist on our farm. And those conditions are not always ideal due to climate conditions, due to our abilities to keep up or not with things. We have normally dryland farmed, which has become since my dad has been gardening anyway, like I said, yeah, my family definitely came there initially for irrigation purposes for vegetables when they had to. And we're kind of going to that again to some degree, at least needing to, feeling desperate to use some irrigation, because if it's a matter of crop or no crop, well, you don't want no crop. So yeah, we do minimal irrigation, but we will probably do a bit more this year because it's been so dry. And then the last question, have you had any interaction with Indigenous seed savers? We have in some, in minimal ways across the country, not specifically a lot in our area necessarily. There wasn't as much of a tradition really of gardening on the prairies in Indigenous communities. And so I think in out east and out west, that's a bit different, and further down south in Indigenous communities, but yeah, have had some engagement with Indigenous seed savers, and I know there are some that have got some seeds from us, and every year we always have one or two people that really inquire about any varieties that we might have that come from Indigenous origins, which is a small number of things that, I mean, all of the seeds, I guess, if you go far back enough, but yeah, that's wanted to see what those.
Thank you. You covered it all. Rebecca or Mel, would you like to add anything onto that?
Sure, I can just touch quickly on, I guess, farming and climate chaos. As I'm fairly new to farming, and this will be my, I say fairly new, but I guess this coming year will be my 8th or 9th growing season. But every year is like a totally different thing. Like I've never not known what this looks like. It's like, I guess this is just normal, which is scary. And it's definitely something that we think about. It's like we're just in the beginnings of kind of building up the farm in this location. And so it's like, do we feel confident that we will be able to build a livelihood out of this, because things are so precarious already? You know, farmers are on the front line of the climate crisis, but you can really, really feel it on years when things are so extreme as they were out east here last year, with the droughts and wildfires, which I had never seen in Nova Scotia. There was wildfires in the spring, there was droughts in the spring, and then it rained nonstop for 3 months, 900 millimeters of rain in 3 months, like unheard of. And so all of our outdoor crops just died. And it's like, well, what do we do now? Like, how do we become resilient to something like that? It's like, do we just cover all of our fields and, you know, exclusively grow in greenhouses and tunnels? Like that doesn't really feel like an option. So of course, we're always thinking about the things that we can do to really build up our soil, to increase the organic matter, to, you know, build raised beds, you know, all of these little things. It's like, certainly we can become more resilient. And as our soil gets stronger and as our infrastructure and our systems get better, I think we will inherently be more resilient, because we are quite small scale. So we are quite adaptable and quite flexible. And we're also quite diversified, which I think is really a benefit when we're facing all of these changes, but it is still just so extreme that you can't predict what's going to happen. And like the nail in the coffin last year was, the hurricane season, which now is just a regular thing every year. And it was not like a massive storm this year like it was last year, but still it's like enough that we take down our tunnels, and so we lose all of our crops, and we have to take up all the mesh, and so all of our crops get flattened. And it's like, this is a thing that we now have to prepare for every September. And so if there's like a bad growing season before that, it's like, I don't know. So it is definitely scary, like thinking about what that means going forward. And it's, I'm not here to just complain about the weather, and but it is something that's very real. And I think as it comes back to community, we really try and be transparent with our CSA members and with the market, and just like keeping everyone in the loop of like, it's great. We're so happy to be able to share our tomatoes with you, but also like, it's so hard. And we're like awake every night thinking about how it's too wet or too dry, or how there's a hurricane coming, or all these things. So it's really, it's challenging. And I think we're really trying to prioritize taking care of our mental health as well, and trying to, set boundaries with the farm as much as it's, our life and our livelihood, and we live on the farm, trying to be really clear about finding a balance, which is not easy. But anyway, that was a bit of a ramble about climate chaos, but I'll pass it over to Mel if you want to add more to that. I know you folks have been facing a lot of challenges out west as well, and everyone.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a lot of it was like already talked about in their little film, like Hannah mentioned, like all the drought that we've been at the receiving end of, and it's a very specific thing for our region, and it's compound for us that like our soil is extremely sandy, so it's a true sieve, and as soon as it gets hot, it dry right away. So it's just balancing all of that, and I think like climate change is definitely real. We're feeling it like every single day, almost of the year now. And things are shifting, and farmers are always at the forefront of that receiving of the change and having to adapt. And sometimes what I question personally is like, who's paying the price for this? Like Rebecca mentioned, like losing crops and all this. And we still have that battle of like looking at the grocery, and although the grocery store costs have gone drastically high, then who is impacted by that? It's low-income folks. And what do we have to do to survive? Sometimes is to rise our price, and there's that struggle too of like, I am not comfortable with this. I want people to access my food. So we really need to start questioning who has to support what's happening right now. Who is the person that should be like paying the bill of what's happening right now? I'm not going to point fingers, but the big industries, like that cause in the first place, the climate change should be probably at the top of the list. But yeah, that's it. It's incredible. Like I've been farming for 20 years, and I mean, there's always been odd season that you're like a cold spring, a wet fall. That's always been kind of part of the equation, and that's why we have tunnels and we have hoop houses and places where there's more snow. I'm from Quebec originally, like heated greenhouses and all that. But now there's additional one, like the smoke is a huge one. Like I can, like Rebecca lived through it too here. It's been all the summer. And we have some of our staff that needed to take days off, and we wanted them to take days off. We don't want anybody to run themselves to the ground, but you're at the peak of the season. And there you are working like in the heat with mask on. And it's like, this is not what I signed up for. It's like, it's just, and it might be our new reality. Like there's some of those fires having like just went a bit dormant over winter. It's incredible. Like we're like heading into a next fire season. So those are the aspect of farming and the price to pay that is not showing anywhere, and that we're the one paying it right now. And that's not in terms of resilience. Yes, farmers are resilient, but at one point it's becoming quite heavy to carry all of that. And not to mention that often women are also the receiving end of a lot of that too, in terms of paying the price at the end of the day for all those climate change hit left and right.
Totally. Yes, and you can't bear it alone. And so I'm glad that you brought up the mental health aspect. And I know that NFU also just put out a report on mental health and what supports are needed, and especially in this new normal or new reality that you're talking about. And so that's why we try to focus on our policy work. And because you're really not only are you growing all the food that we all depend on, but you're also providing public goods, right, in terms of ecological services because of the way you farm. And those should be recognized, and those should be supported and covered. And also too, not to point fingers, but just to point one finger in terms of who's responsible, right? And this brings us back to International Women's Day, I think, because you think of what farmers and women who are often on the front lines of this around the world are focusing or are facing in terms of climate change. You know, huge impacts, forced migration, cyclical droughts, and flooding every year. And so we really need to step up and think about, you know, we have a right to healthy food. Everybody has a right to a good livelihood. And we have a right to be able to stay in our homes and not be displaced. So there's really so much more support that we need to bring into this. And that's what we're trying to focus on. And when you share the stories and the needs, it really helps to make the case. So thank you all for that. I want to open it up to the group, to the audience. If you have any questions for this wonderful panel, please feel free, unmute yourself and shout it out.
Janine Gibson here from Treaty 6 in Southeast Manitoba. Just have to say thank you so much. What a wonderful way to celebrate International Women's Day. From my little snowbank here, we just got another dump of about 12 inches here. So very, very wonderful to celebrate this, the strength that it takes to deal with the weather events. And so glad to know that we're talking about it, because it's going to take all of us problem solving to the best of our ability to feed ourselves and each other as we make this change, because some people are so slow to see the poison that industrial agriculture is. So just profound gratitude. Carry on, stay strong, women. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Likewise, thank you for all your efforts over the many, many years. Did any of you want to react to that?
Thank you for being here, Janine.
Oh, you're very welcome. So great to see the farm, you know, your work continue on, Rachel. Your folks were great inspiration to me for a long time. So still love the cookbook, still use it all the time.
Awesome. That's my auntie Betty. Yeah, my dad's sister did the cookbook. Yeah, food runs deep in my family, being involved in food for sure.
Legacy. Maybe we can pick up on, you know, this whole thread about a lot of times this push for ecological, organic, regenerative, agroecology. All of this is coming from young people, people who want to become first generation farmers, women, right? Diverse farmers. And the push is coming from them, but really we face a lot of barriers to get into this industry. So Mel, you spoke a bit about it in your film, in terms of having people come onto the farm, and half of the people who do and come work with you are queer identifying, and just creating this opportunity, a pathway for people to be able to come and learn and just get a foot in the door. So the question is really, what can we do to get more women, more diverse, more young people into farming, either here in Canada or wherever you are calling from?
I mean, I guess a big part of it being visible is like a huge part. I think Hannah mentioned it like in the film, and that's partially why we were from the get-go identifying as a queer farm, because like I said, I've been farming for 20 years, and I've always been lucky, always been in region and in places where my queer identity was never been an issue or barrier. But I remember back when I was on Vancouver Island, it was maybe 15 years ago now, we at one point we realized there was a bunch of queers like on all the farms that were connected around the farm where I was, and we started like joking over lunchtime that we would start like what we called a Rainbow Chart Collective as like a queer farm. And I just, you're in our late 20s. I didn't have kids back then. I had time to kill, and it just start something fun. And we ended up marching in the Pride Parade that year as like covered with mud, and we were mud spanking people and just having a lot of fun with that. And we had like a very small presence. I think we started a Facebook group. And that's when it really hit me, is that people from across the country and even across North America and Turtle Island were sending us messages, can I come and work on your farm? And I was like, I don't even have a farm. I work for someone else. Like we most of us were all just staff. And that just kind of really shined a light, like that just made us realize, A, we were very privileged to be where we were at and being out and queer and celebrating it and being even visible on platform and social media. But there was a need, and started thinking through that, and like, yeah, it's not all region that if you're out and queer and interested in farming, that it will be a safe space to go towards it. So I think it's very that visibility and celebrating it and shining a light on all of those people that are doing it, create those space that make people feel safe to try to try it, basically. Because we're visible and we're very active on social media and all, we get a lot of, like we're saying, a lot of applicants and queer folks, and wanted to work on our farm. And I've heard through the comment also Robin's farm in BC also is one of those. But I think we need to, yeah, to share the word about that. And also, you don't need to be a queer farmer. You don't need to be self-identified and shine the light. You could create safer space by also just naming it. Make yourself a safer space. Like, it's not because you're not queer yourself, you cannot be a safer space. And maybe there's a lot of other barrier in getting in farming. It could be that you're from a city and you have to literally relocate somewhere, and that's a big thing. So like, so if you have a farm and you create, you know, your create that safer space and you're visible about it, or you put it on social media, and maybe there will be people close by that may have that opportunity, so they don't have to relocate necessarily to try it on the farming world. Because as we all know, like out of like maybe 10 people trying out farming and working as a staff, maybe only 1 or 2 will continue in a long-term journey, but you need to create those space for trying it. And the reality is right now too, it's like you're not just like uplifting and uprooting your entire life. To do so is a lot. So you have to get a taste of it somewhere. So like for us, I think that's what really is important, is that creating that safer space. And it's easy for us because we were queer identified to just throw a flag in our driveway and calling ourselves that. But I think it's important for the people to also create those space and asking yourself what it is. What does it mean to create those space? And there's more and more a lot of good resources out there to do so.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Rochelle, Rebecca, would you like to add anything?
Sure. I think that, having the opportunity to be exposed to the work of growing food is so, so important. I think there's a fair amount of kind of red tape around it at the moment due to, land access, not even just buying a farm, but things like having access to land to try it out and grow, and, a lot of still unpaid internships. So like having the privilege to be able to maybe take a pay cut for a season to learn something, or, there's just so many pieces at the moment built into the food system that I think make it really challenging for people to even get a taste of what it looks like to grow food. But I do think it is such an incredible thing. So I would love to see more things. I saw someone mention incubator farms. I think that if we can be creating more opportunities for people to get onto the land and just try it, that would be so powerful. I think that continuing to have conversations like this where we're really celebrating farming and hopefully showing it in a light that's not all scary and doom and gloom, but really making it exciting and making it feel like this powerful and viable, hopefully, livelihood that we can encourage folks to get into. I think that just breaking down kind of that also barrier is really key. That's something that I think about a lot, is like wanting to show it, farming as a viable livelihood. It's not something that we've quite achieved yet. I'm over here working 3 jobs to try and, build up a farm that's resilient enough that I can actually pay myself and to do this work that I love doing. So I feel like there's still work there to be done. So I'm always hesitant to, really be like, let's all do it. But at the end of the day, like, I am still doing it because I think it's important and because I love doing it. And I, would love to see more people on the ground and having the opportunity to get exposed to it. And just one final thought is about just collaboration and cooperation. I feel like every farm, meeting, be it through the NFU or other farm organizations, or even just chatting with young farmer friends, we're all like, so why are we all doing this alone? Why are we not, banding together and finding ways to be more cooperative and collaborate more? And I think that's a really exciting piece. And I think that I'm given a lot of hope through that idea of collaboration. We're really excited to have a good friend of ours come and work with us on the farm this year. We're doing kind of a trial year to have her working with us with hopefully the intent of becoming a cooperative and, just bringing more people on board to take some of the weight off of the shoulders of just a few people and help to, spread that around. As we've talked about it, farming is incredibly challenging. But I think there is a lot of potential to be bringing more people into it and sharing that burden and making it something that can be celebrated and not just feel hard all the time.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. This is the reality of farming that we want to talk about. Like we said, the successes and the many, many challenges. So thank you for being honest about it. And yeah, I think different kind of co-ops and different models like that are an interesting opportunity. So we hope it goes well. And Rachel, would you like to add?
Yeah, sure. I really appreciate that last emphasis on collaboration and working together, because I definitely think that's the only viable path forward, especially in rural Saskatchewan. Running a small farm is incredibly isolating and not realistic to keep up for the long term. As much as I hear the people who like the more introverted, isolated time of working alone, sort of forced isolation with absolutely very few neighbors around is a different story altogether. And then I'm also very much on the extreme end of extroversion. So yeah, I'm not sure how much longer I can do this if I don't have collaborators, if I don't have other people to work with physically close together. And that's the challenge in Saskatchewan, is like there are a number of really cool, awesome young farmers, but we're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hour drive away from each other one way. So yeah, it's really hard at things like this coming together. And I know even though we're all across the country, but for me this is really important to celebrate why I do this, because on the daily it's can be pretty easy to get frustrated and discouraged regularly. So yeah, I really appreciate this coming together. And I just think, the barriers of land access for sure, of funding, of in my own situation for sure feeling like imposter syndrome and not sure if you have a great opportunity to offer somebody for learning and working. So just not getting your story out to the right people who might say, yeah, actually, I really do value this and I want to come and learn there. And then there's organizations like Young Agrarians, NFU, and COG that say, okay, there's these grants you could apply for, Rochelle, to have this summer student and whatnot. So those kinds of things are helpful. But all these communication pieces, all these connecting pieces, I think relationships are key. Collaboration is key, but they're also hard and challenging. And so we've got to be kind with each other. We've got to be, gracious with each other, give us all grace. We're all dealing with our own internal struggles and challenges, as well as external, interpersonal. It's not easy, but it's meaningful and it's important, and it's the only possible way forward.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, let's do more of these. Thank you for sharing. Here's a very specific follow-on to what we've just been talking about, but from Mary. Have any of you thought about beginning farm incubators on your farms and forming larger collectives? So there's a mentorship coupled with the experience for beginning farmers. Maybe that's a little bit about what you do, Mel, but yeah, this whole idea about incubation.
Yeah, there's a few model out there, and I think it works well in some contexts. There's a lot of like obviously behind the scene with the incubator farm and management and organizing, and but if the land is available and there's people that can spearhead it, I found those kind of like in behind the scene pieces often if you rely on the farmer to run them, we're busy farming. It's not like well, we have those great ideas in the winter and they just don't pan out in the summer because we just at one point to just drop off the map. So I think if you have that kind of capacity in your farmer like supporter and all that, those are the kind of program that are great to set up. And yes, farmers are available always for teaching and all that, but recognizing also the knowledge has always been a key part in farming that I found very interesting. As much as like carpenters will like go on and get paid to learn their skills, we're seen as farmers that you're just gonna learn on the fly or take a program but pay out of like there's different nuances I think in the knowledge that's sitting within the farmers. And I often we've run some apprenticeship in the first few years of our business, mainly because we couldn't afford to pay someone, and all I could offer was my knowledge. So it's like if I found the right match, it would be amazing to have people, and we did find people that were the right match. But it's a very unique place in your life you could be to take literally a summer off, barely getting paid just for knowledge. I don't think it's fair either. So there's that navigating all of that in terms of like how do we teach and how do we recognize that knowledge has a value to you. And the time I spent teaching, I'm not necessarily in the field getting shit done. And the best teaching in farming is doing it, really. So working is a teaching, but with my staff, I'm not always available to answer all questions. So there's just a lot of aspect to this that we need to take in consideration. Just opening a piece of land and throwing some young folk on it, not always the solution. It's a good solution to get a lot of weeds going, but it's I think there needs to be support and there need to be some stewardship of where the knowledge is going to come from and what is the best thing to learn at a different stage of the way too. An apprenticeship and practicums and those kind of things. So I think there's good models out there though already, but maybe probably more the merrier.
Totally. Maybe young agrarians is one place that people can think about. Rebecca, Rochelle, do you have thoughts on this question?
Sure, I can just mention quickly that there's a land access committee running in Nova Scotia at the moment, so kind of a local branch, I'd say, of the National Land Access Committee of the National Farmers Union. And actually in our meeting just this past week, we were talking about, land access broadly, but specifically in looking at, there's so much farmland out there either owned by farmers or non-farmers, and this came up, sorry, some context out of conversation. There was kind of a roundtable discussion led by one of the great farmers here in Nova Scotia a couple weeks ago. She's currently farming at an incubator farm and has been there for a couple of years, but is actively looking to buy farmland, but has come up with a lot of barriers in doing so. So was kind of facilitating a just wide open conversation with farmers of all ages about like, what does this look like? Is there opportunities for sharing, and how can we kind of facilitate that? So out of this meeting that we had this week, it was like maybe the role for us is, not necessarily to open the incubators ourselves or to do these things ourselves, because yeah, as Mel said, we're busy farming and don't necessarily have capacity for these things, but maybe it's like helping to create resources to be sharing. And it's like, what could land sharing look like, and looking at, all of the different components that are so important. It's like looking at the communication piece and like, what are your human wants and needs to get out of this, but also as a farmer and kind of as a producer, what are you hoping to get out of this? Looking at, like long-term leases, looking at the legal realities of it, and kind of, not putting a prescriptive resource together, but really basing it off some of the work similarly that Young Agrarians has done with land matching and kind of this work out west that doesn't really exist here in the same way. So looking at how can we share these resources? How can we get people on the land? Because there's people that want to be growing food that are excited to do it and are looking for land, but it's kind of a matter of finding the ways to be sharing it. So yeah, I appreciate the comments about incubators and about, creating these opportunities. And I think there's definitely potential there. And I really appreciate the the non-farmers that are in this struggle with us that are doing a lot of that heavy lifting and doing that work to help get people on the land and help set up these programs. There's a lot of amazing work happening behind the scenes, and it's more than just the farmers taking this on, which I really appreciate.
Thank you for that. Rochelle, anything to add?
I think you've both said maybe most of, yeah, what is good to say, so I can maybe leave it at that.
Perfect. Seconded. Okay, everyone, we've got 2 more questions and then we'll start to wrap it up, because if you forgot, we have a special surprise coming. So we definitely need to leave some time for that. And so here's the 2 questions. I'll ask them at the same time and then we can just do a round table. So one of them is, what do you do in the winters? What do your winters look like? This is in the spirit of just sharing a bit more about you. And then the final one is, what kinds of supports do you feel like are missing that organizations like the NFU or COG could provide to women? Is it funding? Is it land access programs? Is it community? These are all things we've been talking about in the conversation today. But, you know, if they're for our organizations where we go to either create these programs directly or go to advocate for public policy support or connect funding, what do you think are some of the priorities that we should focus on? So those are the 2, your winter, and then what do you need more support with?
Good start.
Go ahead.
My winter is full of seed processing and packaging and yeah, mailing out seeds, filling seed orders, and going to CD Saturdays and CD Sundays in different communities. So I am going this year to 6, I believe. So tomorrow is the Saskatoon CD Saturday here in the city. And then on Sunday is Meadow Lake CD Sunday. And then, yeah, there will be 2, 3 more for sure that I'm going to. So yeah, we do. And our farm has no sort of season that's really off. And I also took a part-time job at a law office recently last fall. So it's kind of been an interesting addition to my work, learning a lot there, and some extra income, which leads to, I'd say, probably supports for Prairie Garden Seeds. Ideally is probably funding. I feel like if I had funding for things specific, I could do them. My struggle is though also, you know, finding what opportunities are out there and then filling out these things. I usually am filled with self-doubt that no, I probably don't quite have this organized or that organized, or I'm not sure if I'm good enough here or there. So just the supports in trying to get that kind of stuff together, if and when there is funding, then and I'm getting better at that, but I just haven't done a lot of that. So it's very much out of my comfort zone and realm of like expertise and experience. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Thank you. Coggin and a few people are taking notes down. Go ahead, Mel.
Winter are very busy. It's incredible. I always feel I'm gonna have so much more time. But it's still barely, like even Hannah, we live together and we barely see each other do things together, even in the winter. So it's a lot of crop planning, the seed order, and then we're diving into repairing everything because we basically build a farm on a shoestring. So the shoestring keep breaking. So the shoestrings need to be repaired. And a lot of planning. Our seasons are pretty long here, like, so it's really mild in the, so we're already like actually our direct seeding and ground are already set for next week. It may work, it may not work. It's a shot in the dark seeding, but we always try it in case of good luck. And also winter for us, now that we also have a young family, it's trying to spend a bit more time with those kids that get a bit neglected in the summer when mama is always in the field. And if you want to see mama come down to the field, at least there's strawberries, so they get to fill themselves with strawberries as, as a reward. So we're also trying to focus a little bit more on our family life, spending a bit more time with those kiddos as they're growing so fast. And in terms of what's needed, I would say I have to echo what Rachel's saying. Like, I think funding is really it's primary for farmers. We're always kind of scratching the bottom of the barrel of our piggy banks, and the barrel piggy banks will be actually a good one, but we always need more access to, there's always something that we need. But also the advocacy part, I think it's already done. It's not, as a, let me rephrase it, it's not done. There's already some happening, but there's almost always more to be done. So always to be at the forefront of when things happen as farmers, it's really hard for us to be reactive right away in the middle of a summer specifically. So always having an eye on that advocacy part, that's like as things come down, to be able to speak for us, I think is still a very important part of the equation. But having really practical funding, sometimes a lot of the funding out there is about like, hire a consultant to do this for you. Like, well, I know what I need. I know what I want. I need the money to do it. Like, stop giving the money to the person above us. Give it directly to us, and it's incredible what we can do with $2 as a farmer. So you'll get more out of your bucks giving it directly to us even as a result.
So not just funding, but flexible funding for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's a great point. You're not alone in saying it. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so I guess I'll also break it into two parts. So winter at the farm here mostly looks like trying to make money that I'm unfortunately not really making during the season currently as we're building up the farm. So working a couple jobs. But then also, yeah, doing the crop planting, doing the fixing, doing the renovations on the greenhouse, all that kind of stuff, chasing tarps as they blow away in the wind, all these kinds of things. It's also a lot of kind of advocacy and other volunteer work around farming issues. I feel like once you get involved with one issue, it's just like, you're like, wow, I'm on a million boards and doing a lot of things right now. So trying to, keep space and continue to find time for, just walking in the woods or having fun, non-farm, non-work, that kind of stuff. But obviously I do enjoy it. Otherwise I probably would have pulled the plug a long time ago. So I certainly do look forward to being able to take more of a pause in winter. We are currently growing on kind of a May to October kind of schedule. So it is a decently long off season. I mean, we've already started seeds this time of year and we'll hopefully be sowing into greenhouses maybe tomorrow if the sun comes out and dries things out. So it is like our main growing season is that, but there is a fair bit of flexibility through the winter. So looking forward to kind of one day having that luxury of relaxing in the winter and, knitting more hats and knitting hats for all my friends and all that kind of stuff. I do look forward to that, but also appreciate that I am getting to build this thing that I really care about. And if I need to work a couple other jobs to fund that for now, so be it. And then, yeah, I guess that ties very easily into the piece of where support is needed. I think, of course, as was mentioned, funding is really key. And I think to continue making noise as small scale farmers, that there's different types of funding that really are more meaningful. We're not big industrial farms for whom there's like easy things like crop insurance or, that kind of like how many, like fantastic. The Nova Scotia government just a couple of weeks ago released some extra funds for like season response because last year was a total write-off for a lot of farmers. But the section, it was like, how many tons or, units of crop did you lose? And I was like, well, I grow like 85 crops. I lost a bunch of them, but like, it's just like, these things, it's a challenge often to fit ourselves into the funding programs that do exist. So that being said, I think there's, funding support is always fantastic, but also I think the advocacy piece is always necessary. I think continuing to advocate for things like land access, to continue pushing for things like basic income. I think that would make a huge difference for the lives of a lot of farmers. It's pushing for, there's some serious wind happening outside. We lost a tunnel to some wind last week and I'm like keeping an eye on the one that I just put up to hope it doesn't fly away. But yeah, I think that, climate action, there's so many things that I think we need to continue advocating for, and it's a big piece of building this new food system, but I think it is really important. And yeah, I think that more things like this, taking the time to actually celebrate the small farming and not look past, but embrace the challenges and celebrate the hard work that's being done is also really important.
So I appreciate both of, COG and the NFU for putting this together and helping raise some awareness here.
Thanks, Rebecca. That's awesome. Gives us a lot to think about. And yeah, how can we support diversified farms within our system that often supports, you know, huge monoculture. Anyway, there's a lot to work on. But thank you all for what you shared. This has been such a tremendous event. And now let's close it off with our special guest. To bring us home, we have Luama Mulalu here, poet who has been listening to what you've all been sharing and has put together a poem about the day in recognition of International Women's Day that she would love to share with us. So Lulu, I welcome you to the stage. Go ahead. Enjoy, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me? So I am so honored to be present with you all, and in terms of listening and being absorbing all the material, but also being inspired by everyone who's present, and happy Women's Day to everyone. So the poem that I wrote is called The Future We Want, and I sort of took the themes of regeneration, women, rebirth, soil, anti-colonial world building, community belonging, preservation, climate grief, and how to sort of accumulate that into a viable form of hope. So I'll start with the poem, The Future We All Want. So Naira Wahid once said, "I do not pay attention to the world ending. The world has ended for me many times and began again in the morning." It is the end of July here, and there is no potential sorry. It is the end of July here, and there is so much potential brimming still. Although the earth is cracking, although the bloom is coming later, and even though my heart is rupturing along with the world, there is still a boldly romantic life we can keep building from the ground up. Reaching deep into the soil, we can unearth and harvest what is left of each other. Although the world is ending, I do not pay much attention. I have watched the changing leaves die only to begin again, shaking off that winter dark. Everything good starts with a bite of a ripe, bright red cherry, right? And a scattering of tomato seeds, breathing and waiting, sinking our hungering hands into longing gardens and all that is precious, to manage our expectations, our grief, and our endless mourning, shelling our jelly sacks before the inevitable doorway to spring and growth. After we are done with our days, what is left? After we are done with our shedding, what is left? The sharing that feeds the world with the hope and thanks of something radically different. I don't want anything to do with Amazon. By that, I mean the business, not the forest. I want a politics that reflects my yearning for a romantically ecological life. I want a world of sovereignty. I want a world of soft release, even if brief and even if small. I want a world of easier breath. And it all starts with the soil. It starts with a new form of mourning, both ourselves and each other. Now bring in your listening ears and put them to any seed. What do you hear when you begin to quiet all the chaos? I heard that seeds sing like seashells do. Oh, Persephone, goddess of spring growth, sing me a slow song about something good amidst the cacophony and homesickness, about a tomorrow with no borders and no false walls. In the middle of the drought season, please sing me a song of belonging. Like you, I was raised in an institution of believing in lives constantly unfolding. There is a dream I have of the world where all the queer farmers come to pull the future we all desperately deserve from the fire. Even though my heart ruptures with the world, the wildest blooms all start with the soil. Thank you.
Thanks, Lulu. I'm not positive, but I think I see some tears, so I think that's a good sign. Thank you so much for that. I think that this is a reminder that, being women in farming and really being committed to what we're doing. It's an art, and art has a place in what we do too. So thank you for sharing that art with us. That's a perfect way to end off this amazing event. And everybody, with that, let's wrap it up for today. Thank you again, Mel, Rachel, Rebecca, Hannah, Jim, Nassim, Laura, Jenna, everyone for putting this event together, and what a beautiful way to celebrate International Women's Day. Thanks, Mara, for all of the resources you put into the chat about how the NFU can support you and answering those questions. Thank you, everybody, for coming and joining us and being with us for the past couple of hours. It was a beautiful way to spend the afternoon. And with that, happy Women's Day. Enjoy the rest of it.
Thank
And
you so
let's do this
much.
again soon.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Canadian Organic Growers, for partnering with us on this. Happy Women's Day.
Thank you.